Just after signing the divorce papers, my ex-husband's family eagerly packed up to move into my $4 million Bel Air mansion. Little did they know, when they excitedly pushed open the gates, they were not stepping into a life of luxury, but into a humiliating and agonizing trap I had meticulously set for them. I walked out of the downtown Los Angeles courthouse as the blazing afternoon sun beat down on the asphalt. The radiating heat blurred the busy traffic zooming past, but strangely, my heart felt completely cool and refreshed. In my hand was the freshly stamped divorce decree. That thin piece of paper carried the weight of the world, marking the end of years of living as a wife and daughter-in-law drowning in humiliation and tears. I took a deep breath. Even the smoggy city air smelled wonderful today. It smelled like freedom. I adjusted my oversized designer sunglasses, hiding the dark circles under my eyes from sleepless nights dealing with legal paperwork. I was finally free. The heavy footsteps echoing on the pavement behind me made me pause. I did not even need to turn around to know it was Hunter. The overpowering stench of his expensive cologne mixed with cigar smoke had always suffocated me. He stepped up beside me, casually lighting a cigar, taking a long drag, and blowing the smoke in my direction. His arrogant demeanor was exactly the same as always. He looked me up and down with absolute contempt and a victorious smirk. "Well, Victoria," Hunter sneered, his voice dripping with condescension. "You look awfully happy holding that paper. Let's see how long that lasts. Without me, without the title of a CEO's wife, how do you plan to keep that Bel Air estate?" I stayed silent, only offering a faint, dismissive smile. He still thought of me as a beautiful but useless trophy wife, living solely off his glory. He had no idea that I was the one secretly carrying the financial weight of the empire he so proudly claimed as his own. Seeing my silence, Hunter pressed on, stepping closer, and lowering his voice as if granting me a favor. "Let me tell you something. A discarded woman is like spilled water. Sooner or later, you will come crawling back on your knees, begging me to take you in. Maybe then I will remember our past and toss you some spare change to survive on. As for that mansion, you can keep the empty shell. Its soul belongs to me now." I looked straight into his eyes, my gaze unnervingly calm. In the past, whenever he raised his voice, I would bow my head and endure it to keep the peace. But today, that weak woman was dead. "Thank you for your concern, Hunter," I replied softly, articulating every word. "But you should worry about yourself first. From this moment on, we go our separate ways. Whether I keep the house or how I live my life is none of your business." With that, I turned on my heel and walked straight toward the waiting Uber Black. I refused to waste another second of my life on this worthless man. Sitting in the back seat, I glanced through the rearview mirror and saw Hunter kicking his SUV's tire in frustration. He still believed he was the winner, that I was just a miserable failure being tossed out onto the streets. He had no idea that the real storm heading for his family was only just gathering. As the car rolled away, leaving the imposing courthouse and a painful past behind, I pulled out my phone and sent a brief text to Attorney Thomas. "Everything at court is done. You can initiate Plan B." I closed my eyes and leaned my head against the leather seat. Memories of being berated by my mother-in-law, despised by my husband, and leeched off by my in-laws flashed through my mind like a slow-motion film. Barbara, Hunter's mother, was an endlessly greedy woman who constantly claimed to love her daughter-in-law but demanded money at every turn. Lexi, his lazy sister, only cared about buying designer clothes using my hard-earned money. And Connor, his younger brother, was drowning in gambling debts. They were like leeches attached to me, draining me emotionally and financially. But the Victoria of the past was gone. Today, I was going to teach them a lesson they would never forget. A lesson about karma that they had long ignored. I smiled. A cold but deeply satisfied smile. The game was finally beginning. While I leisurely enjoyed an iced Americano at a quiet corner cafe, a tragicomedy was being heavily orchestrated on the other side of the city. I only heard the details later from Mrs. Higgins, my old neighbor, but her vivid recounting allowed me to picture every detail as if I were standing right there. At a cramped, noisy rental apartment in East LA, Barbara was directing her two precious children to pack up their belongings. The atmosphere was as festive as a carnival. Barbara, wearing a cheap, flashy velour tracksuit, fanned herself rapidly while barking orders. "Hurry it up! Connor, wrap those speakers carefully. When we get to the new house, we are throwing a massive party so the whole Bel Air neighborhood knows who we are. Lexi, pack all the clothes and shoes. Do not leave a single thing behind. Even these cheap rags can be used to mop the floors. I am not leaving anything for the landlord." Connor laughed loudly while taping up a cardboard box. Do not worry, Mom, I have it all planned out. That basement over there is huge. I am turning it into a man cave with a top-tier home theater system. I will invite all my buddies over and make them jealous. We have really hit the jackpot this time. Lexi, touching up her lipstick in the mirror, was daydreaming. I claim the master suite with the balcony overlooking the hills. The natural lighting there is perfect. I can live stream my makeup tutorials and post on TikTok all day. My friends are going to die of envy when they see me living in a $4 million mansion. Barbara smiled so widely her chain smoker yellow teeth showed. She slapped her thigh in excitement. Of course. Your brother's house is my house, and it is your house too. Victoria got kicked out. Now that estate belongs to our family. I am taking the biggest suite on the first floor, the one Victoria used to forbid me from entering. Now I can do whatever I want. Her loud voice echoed down the hallway. Curious neighbors peeked out and saw two large moving trucks backing into the narrow driveway, blocking the communal path. A few nosy neighbors called out, "Hey Barbara, where are you moving to with all these trucks? Did you win the lottery?" Barbara lifted her chin to the sky, her voice full of arrogance. "Oh, this cramped place is just too suffocating. My son Hunter is moving the whole family into his Bel Air estate. A $4 million mansion, thousands of square feet, with a massive pool and a private garden. We are upgrading our lifestyle. We do not have to squeeze into this poor neighborhood anymore." Hearing this, the neighbors stared at each other in shock. Some rolled their eyes, some shook their heads in disgust, but a few praised her good fortune. Barbara soaked up the compliments, acting as if she were about to be crowned royalty. Every single item was loaded onto the trucks. From broken brooms and torn floor mats to old jars of pickles and cheap condiments, Barbara insisted on taking it all. She reasoned that being rich did not mean wasting money, and the money saved on buying new things could be spent on gold jewelry for herself. Connor and Lexi sweated profusely while lifting heavy boxes, but their faces beamed with joy. In their minds, they were already living like royalty with servants at their beck and call. They had no idea this convoy was not taking them to paradise, but straight into a brutal lesson about greed and delusion. The moving trucks started their engines, blowing dark exhaust into the alley. Barbara climbed into the passenger seat next to the driver, waving at the neighbors like a pageant queen. "Goodbye, everyone. I am off to enjoy my new life." The convoy rolled out, carrying the family's dreams of luxury straight toward the west side. Sitting in the cafe, I checked my watch. The climax was approaching. I took a sip of my coffee, the bitterness melting on my tongue, leaving a sweet aftertaste. Karma always comes to collect, and today, I was the debt collector. At exactly 2 p.m., the LA sun was scorching, making the air feel heavy and suffocating. The two bulky moving trucks carrying the family and their dreams rumbled into the exclusive Bel Air neighborhood. The lush, manicured trees lining the streets and the towering gates of the surrounding estates left Barbara and her children in awe. Connor stuck his head out the window, his eyes shining like headlights, calculating how many millions this neighborhood was worth. The truck stopped in front of the massive wrought iron gates of estate number 86. The gates stood tall and majestic under the sun. Barbara quickly hopped out, gripping a set of old keys she had secretly copied back when Hunter and I lived together. She bossed the drivers around. "Just back the trucks right up to the gate. I will open it so you can pull straight into the driveway and save us some heavy lifting." She marched forward with the confidence of a conquering general. She picked the largest key and shoved it into the pedestrian gate lock, but strangely, it would not go in. She twisted it, pushed it, and jammed it so hard the key nearly bent, but the gate remained perfectly still. "What is going on? Why is this lock acting up today?" Barbara muttered, sweat beading on her forehead. Lexi stood nearby, holding a battery-powered minifan to her face, looking annoyed. "Hurry up, Mom, I am dying in this heat. Did you bring the wrong key?" "Wrong key? Impossible. I guarded this key with my life." Connor jumped out of the truck, impatiently pushing his mother aside. "Move, Mom. You do not know what you are doing." He grabbed the keys, planning to use brute force, but as he leaned in to look at the lock, he froze. Where the old mechanical lock used to be, there was now a sleek, black, high-tech electronic panel. It was entirely digital, with no keyhole whatsoever. It was a facial recognition and fingerprint smart lock I had a security company install that very morning, right after I left the courthouse. "Mom, we are screwed. Victoria changed the locks," Connor yelled, his voice cracking with rage. Hearing this, Barbara jumped up like she had been electrocuted. She lunged forward, pressing her face against the digital panel, and started slapping it. What? She dared change the locks? This is my son's house. Open up. Open this door right now. Naturally, her demands were met only by the cold silence of the metal and a piercing, high-pitched error beep from the security system. The gates remained firmly closed, coldly rejecting the uninvited guests. The extreme heat, combined with crushing disappointment, made Barbara's blood boil. She completely lost control. She threw the keys on the ground and violently shook the iron gates with both hands. Victoria, get out here! What are you hiding in there for? Open the door. This is Hunter's house. You have no right to keep me out. Her screaming shattered the pristine silence of the wealthy neighborhood. Lexi, seeing her mother throw a fit, joined in. She took off her high heel and started banging the stiletto against the metal bars. Victoria, stop being so evil. You are divorced. Give the house back to my brother. Stealing property is a felony. The truck drivers stood by, shaking their heads in annoyance. One lit a cigarette and called out, "Hey lady, can you get in or not? Let us know so we figure out what to do. It is hot out here, and we charge extra for wait time." Hearing the mention of money, Barbara grew even more furious. She snapped at the driver, "Just wait. Once I get inside, I will pay you double. Now shut up so I can deal with this witch." Barbara turned back to the gate. This time, instead of shaking it, she started picking up landscaping rocks from the curb and hurling them into the yard, cursing with the most vulgar words she could think of. The vision of relaxing in an air-conditioned mansion vanished, replaced by the blind rage of a greedy woman having her prize snatched away. The commotion at Gate 86 quickly attracted attention. In this neighborhood, privacy and absolute quiet were highly respected, so Barbara's behavior was like setting off a fire alarm in a library. A neighborhood security patrol golf cart slowly pulled up. Two guards in crisp uniforms stepped out. A young, fit guard approached Barbara and politely reminded her, "Ma'am, this is a quiet residential area. We ask that you keep the noise down. If there is a dispute, please resolve it with the police or call the homeowner out to speak properly. Yelling and throwing rocks is not permitted." Barbara, already out for blood, saw the security guard as the perfect punching bag. She put her hands on her hips and got right in his face, spitting as she yelled, "Who the hell are you to tell me what to do? I am the mother of the owner of this house. I can do whatever I want on my own property. You are just a guard dog, shut up." The young guard frowned, struggling to maintain his composure. "Ma'am, please watch your language. We are here to maintain order. The homeowner, Miss Victoria, is currently not present and has not authorized entry. You are not allowed to vandalize the property or cause a disturbance." Connor, seeing his mother being confronted, let his inner thug take over. He rolled up his sleeves to show off his cheap tattoos and aggressively shoved the guard in the chest. "You want to go, man? I am the homeowner's brother. This is my house. I can smash things or scream all I want. You touch me, and I will have you fired by tomorrow." The guard took a step back to maintain his balance, placing his hand on his radio. His voice turned stern. "Step back, sir. If you assault security personnel again, we will use force and call the LAPD." Seeing Connor getting aggressive, Barbara switched tactics. From playing the tough aggressor, she suddenly threw herself onto the ground, thrashing around like a fish out of water. She began fake crying and wailing at the top of her lungs. "Oh, help me. Look at this. Rich neighborhood security is beating up an old woman. They teamed up with my evil daughter-in-law to bully a weak old lady. I raised my son, and his wife steals his house, then hires thugs to beat me." Seeing her mother's performance, Lexi quickly pulled out her phone and started a live stream on TikTok, talking a mile a minute. "Guys, please share this stream. Look at these rich elites and their security bullying innocent people. My mom just passed out. My sister-in-law Victoria stole my brother's property and hired goons to beat up her own mother-in-law." This ridiculous Karen-style tantrum made the elegant neighbors walking their purebred dogs shake their heads in disgust. Housewives crossed the street, covering their noses as if avoiding a plague. They whispered to each other, "What a nightmare of a family. I heard that is Victoria's ex-husband's family. She is so sweet. How did she end up with such trash?" Ignoring the disgusted stares, Barbara kept rolling on the ground, getting her velour suit covered in dirt, her hair a messy rat's nest. She thought that by making a massive scene and humiliating me, I would be forced to come out and open the gates. She was dead wrong. I had no fear of losing face because of her hypocritical theatrics. Today, I was going to strip away their masks for the whole world to see. I watched everything through the high-definition security cameras connected to my phone while sitting in the air-conditioned cafe nearby. Seeing my former mother-in-law act like a clown, I only felt amused. I no longer felt the fear or obligation I once had. Human shamelessness truly knows no bounds. The security guard, realizing the situation was escalating beyond his authority, pressed his radio. "Dispatch, this is Patrol 3. We have a public disturbance, trespassing, and attempted assault on an officer at Estate 86. Requesting LAPD backup immediately." Less than 10 minutes later, the wail of police sirens pierced through the neighborhood, crashing Barbara's little pity party. Two black and white LAPD cruisers parked right in front of the chaotic crowd. Several officers stepped out, looking sharp and authoritative. Leading them was Captain Miller, known in the area for being strict and strictly by the book. He scanned the scene. Barbara fake moaning on the ground, Connor red-faced with his hands on his hips, Lexi still filming on her phone, and the two security guards holding the perimeter. "What is the problem here?" Captain Miller's deep voice demanded. Seeing the police, Barbara was suddenly energized. She popped up as fast as a squirrel, entirely forgetting she was supposed to be unconscious. She rushed over, grabbing Captain Miller's sleeve, tears and snot running down her face. "Oh, officer, please help my family. We are victims. My son bought this house with his blood, sweat, and tears, and his evil wife scammed him out of it. Now she changed the locks and trapped his mother and siblings out in the heat. And she ordered her security dogs to beat me." Captain Miller gently but firmly peeled her hands off his uniform, keeping a professional distance. "Calm down, ma'am. Explain the situation clearly, but step back and keep your hands to yourself. There are security cameras all over this street. We can easily pull the footage to see who assaulted who. Do not make false accusations." Hearing the word cameras, Connor flinched and took a step back, but Barbara kept running her mouth. "What cameras?" "They installed them. They can edit the footage. You have to trust the working-class people. I want to enter my son's house. Make Victoria come out and open the gates." Captain Miller turned to the security guard. "What exactly happened here?" "Sir, this group arrived in 2 moving trucks attempting to force entry. When they could not get in, they caused a disturbance, screaming and throwing rocks at the property. When we intervened, that young man shoved me, and this woman threw herself on the ground. The homeowner, Miss Victoria, is not present." Captain Miller nodded and turned back to Barbara's family, his voice sharp. "I need everyone's ID. More importantly, ma'am, you claim this is your son's house. Do you have a property deed, title, or any official document proving you reside at this address?" Barbara froze. "I had always kept the property documents locked away securely. Hunter never even touched them. And her family's legal residence was still at their cheap apartment. Well, it is my son's house, and I am his mother. Of course I have the right to go in. Why do I need papers? Family rights come from the heart, not from a piece of paper," Barbara argued stubbornly. "Ma'am, we operate based on the law. Without documentation, you are committing criminal trespass and disturbing the peace. I am ordering you to disperse and move these trucks immediately. If you continue screaming, you will all be detained and taken to the precinct." Connor, realizing things were going south, tried to play the street-smart negotiator. "Hey, officer, have a heart. My mom is old and confused. But this really is my brother Hunter's house. They are getting divorced, and his wife played dirty by changing the locks. We are all family here. Just let us sit on the porch and wait for Hunter to get here." "There are no exceptions," Captain Miller cut him off. "Property disputes during a divorce are handled by the civil courts. Until a judge issues a ruling, or the current legal owner grants you permission, you have no right to trespass." Just as the tension reached a boiling point and Barbara was preparing for Act 2 of her tantrum, a sleek black Uber pulled up next to the police cruisers. The door opened, and a sharp stiletto heel stepped onto the pavement. It was me. I stepped out, dressed immaculately in a navy blue designer pantsuit, holding a thick manila folder. I took off my sunglasses, looking straight at the chaotic crowd. My sharp gaze swept over the shocked faces of Barbara, Lexi, and Connor. I offered a polite, powerful smile, then walked straight toward Captain Miller. "Good afternoon, officers. Hello, everyone. I am Victoria, the sole legal owner of this estate. What seems to be the problem outside my home?" Barbara looked at me like she was staring at her worst enemy. She pointed a shaking finger at my face and screamed, "You little witch, you finally showed your face. Tell the police to let me in right now. Are you trying to steal my son's house?" I did not even glance at her. I calmly handed the manila folder to Captain Miller. "Captain, Here is the original property deed in my name. Attached is a notarized prenuptial agreement confirming this is my sole separate property purchased with my inheritance prior to the marriage. And here is the finalized divorce decree, effective as of 3 days ago. This property belongs entirely to me. It has absolutely nothing to do with Hunter or his family. Captain Miller took the folder, carefully inspecting every page, and nodded in confirmation. His action was like a bucket of ice water dumped directly on Barbara and her children, instantly extinguishing the flames of their greed. The air in front of the gate was as tense as a snapping violin string. My arrival, backed by ironclad legal documents, completely shifted the balance of power. I stood tall, facing my ex-in-law's hateful glares and the curious stares of the neighbors. Captain Miller scrutinized the deed, cross-referencing my ID and reading the clauses regarding the property's origin. Time seemed to stand still, punctuated only by the pounding hearts of the ex-in-laws. After a thorough check, Captain Miller closed the folder, handed it back to me, and gave Barbara a stern look. He announced loudly, "Ma'am, I have reviewed the documents. Everything is in order. This estate is the sole and separate property of Miss Victoria, established prior to the marriage. It is not marital property. Therefore, your son Hunter, and by extension your entire family, have zero legal claim or access to this residence without Miss Victoria's explicite permission." Captain Miller's words struck like lightning, leaving Barbara paralyzed. Her face went from flushed red to pale white. Her jaw dropped, but no words came out. Connor and Lexi looked at each other in bewildered panic. Their dreams of extreme wealth had just been crushed into dust. However, with greed deeply ingrained in her DNA, Barbara was not about to accept defeat gracefully. She shrieked, "That is impossible! Officer, check again! That witch must have forged those papers. My son is a CEO. He makes money like water. How could he not own any part of this massive house? She is running a scam. She is scamming our whole family." I burst out laughing at the sheer audacity. I looked directly at Barbara, my voice calm but razor sharp. "Barbara, you need to check your memory. A few years ago, when I married Hunter, he was a low-level employee, barely making minimum wage, drowning in gambling debts. The money that paid off his debts came from me. The capital to start his company came from me. This house was bought entirely with the inheritance my parents left me. It is notarized, filed with the county, and signed by Hunter himself, acknowledging it as my separate property. Would you like to see your precious son's signature?" Barbara choked on her words. She knew her son's pathetic past perfectly well, but her greed had blinded her to reality. She turned to Connor for backup, but Connor was just staring at the pavement, kicking at loose gravel. Captain Miller issued a final warning, his tone unyielding. "Ma'am, I will say this one last time. If you believe there is a dispute, hire a lawyer and take it to civil court. Right now, under the law, Miss Victoria is the legal owner. Your actions constitute unlawful assembly, disturbing the peace, and attempted trespassing. Disperse immediately. If you cause any more trouble, I am taking all of you to the precinct." The crowd of neighbors began murmuring. Criticisms and mocking laughter were aimed straight at Barbara's family. Can you imagine? Trying to steal your daughter-in-law's house and getting caught. Play stupid games, win stupid prizes. Good for Victoria. She put up with them for years, and now she is taking out the trash. The whispers felt like needles piercing Barbara's fragile ego. Seeing that no one was on her side and the police were entirely against her, she realized she could not use street thug tactics to win. But her eyes darted around, desperately looking for another excuse to cling to. And then, she came up with the most ridiculous excuse possible. She stood up, brushed the dirt off her clothes, glared at me, and snarled, "Fine, keep your stupid house. But my son's belongings, his clothes, his books, his valuables are still inside. I am going in to get them. Are you planning to steal your ex-husband's underwear too? Have you no shame?" I raised an eyebrow. She wanted to go inside? Perfect. I had been preparing for this exact moment. If she wanted to see the inside, I would let her see it so she could experience absolute despair. As soon as Barbara spoke, Lexi and Connor jumped on the bandwagon. Connor pointed his finger at me. "Yeah, my brother lived here for years. He has a ton of expensive stuff in there. That 100-inch curved TV, the premium surround sound system, the vintage liquor collection. Do not even think about swallowing it all. Open the door so we can get my brother's stuff." Lexi chimed in. "And those designer handbags Hunter gave me that you kept for yourself? Give them back right now." I looked at the three of them, chuckling inwardly. Did they really think this mansion was exactly as they remembered it? Did they think I was an idiot who would leave everything intact for them to scavenge? I turned to Captain Miller with a polite smile. Captain, to prevent them from falsely accusing me of stealing my ex-husband's property, I agree to open the doors and let them inspect the house and remove Hunter's personal belongings. I want to put an end to this today so they stop harassing me. I would appreciate it if you and the neighbors could serve as witnesses. Captain Miller nodded. All right, if Miss Victoria consents, that works. You will go in, collect personal items, and leave peacefully. I will send an officer inside to supervise and ensure there are no altercations. Hearing my agreement, Barbara's eyes lit up like high beams. She winked at Connor and Lexi, a smug look plastered across her face. They were definitely plotting to either refuse to leave once inside or grab every expensive item they could carry. See? That is more like it. Open the door, hurry up, she demanded, itching to rush in. I leisurely walked to the gate, pulled out my phone, and opened my smart home app. With a simple tap on the screen, the electronic lock clicked smoothly. The massive iron gates slowly swung open. I stepped aside and made a welcoming gesture. My smile was probably the most enigmatic thing they had ever seen. Please, go ahead. Look carefully. Do not miss a single corner. Hunter's family ignored my tone. The moment the gap was wide enough, they charged in like a tornado. Connor ran first, with Lexi and Barbara waddling quickly behind him. The movers waited at the gate, ready to haul the loot. They sprinted across the massive manicured lawn. I walked slowly behind them, flanked by a police officer. Watching their greedy, frantic scramble, I almost felt pity. They were sprinting toward a completely empty finish line. Connor was the first to grab the heavy brass handle of the front door. He yanked it open. The double mahogany doors swung wide, and he yelled, "We are in, Mom! We got the house back! Hey, movers, come get the antique wooden dining set first." Barbara arrived panting, a manic grin stretching from ear to ear. "The TV! The giant TV in the living room is mine. If anyone touches it, I will break their arm." They flooded into the house like an invading army, but in the very next second, their cheering stopped dead. The atmosphere turned eerily, terrifyingly silent. Instead of the chaotic sounds of a looting spree, there was only heavy panting and the sound of hesitant, confused footsteps. I stepped onto the porch, stopping at the threshold, and crossed my arms, looking inside. Before me stood three frozen silhouettes in the middle of a massive, echoing living room. Their backs were stiff as boards, as if they had seen a ghost in broad daylight. The best act of the play was finally starting. The afternoon sun streamed through the massive floor-to-ceiling windows, exposing a harsh, brutal reality. The 1,000-square-foot living room, once filled with opulent decor, was completely gutted. There was no imported Italian leather sofa where Barbara used to prop her feet up. The massive 100-inch curved TV was gone from the marble accent wall. The plush wool rugs, the expensive antique vases, the million-dollar oil paintings, everything had vanished. All that remained were four cold, blank white walls and gleaming marble floors that reflected the stunned, horrified faces of my ex-in-laws. The house echoed with a chilling emptiness. Barbara rubbed her eyes repeatedly, thinking the sun had blinded her. She ran in circles around the living room, touching the bare walls where expensive art used to hang. "Where is everything? Where's the furniture?" she shrieked, her voice cracking with panic. Connor refused to believe his eyes. He sprinted into the kitchen. I heard him ripping open the empty cabinets and slamming the drawers. "Mom, the kitchen is completely empty. The fridge, the oven, the dishwasher, even the forks and spoons are gone." His voice echoed, laced with despair. Lexi frantically ran upstairs, her heels clicking loudly on the hardwood steps. A moment later, a blood-curdling scream rang out. "Oh my God! The master bedroom is totally empty. No bed, no closets, no vanity. She took everything, there is not even a single coat hanger left." I leaned against the doorframe, watching Barbara point a trembling finger at me. You. Where did you hide the furniture? Where did you take my son's assets?" I stepped inside, my heels clicking sharply and coldly against the marble. I looked at her and replied calmly, "Barbara, you are mistaken. Every single item in this house, from the TV to the sofa, was purchased with my money. My name is on every receipt. Before the divorce was finalized, I hired an estate liquidation company. I sold it all. To the highest bidders, to junkyards, to thrift stores. I cleared it completely out. This house is now just four walls and a roof." Barbara looked like she was going to pass out. She stumbled back, clutching her chest, and collapsed right onto the cold marble floor since there were no chairs left to sit on. You are a monster! Where are Hunter's things? His clothes? Oh, Hunter's old clothes and the junk he left behind? I pointed toward the backyard. I threw them into those black trash bags by the side gate. Feel free to dig through them and take them home. But inside this house, there is absolutely nothing related to your family anymore. Connor stomped out of the kitchen, his face flushed with fury. He looked around the empty cavern, mourning the fortune he thought was already in his pocket. He growled, "You played us! You really scorched the earth, didn't you? I do not believe this. You definitely hid the cash and gold in the master suite safe." With that, Connor charged upstairs like a wild animal. I did not bother stopping him. I let him look. The wall safe was already wide open, its heavy steel door ajar, containing nothing but a thin layer of dust. A few minutes later, the three of them regrouped in the living room, looking completely defeated, drenched in sweat. The disappointment was palpable in their eyes. They had wasted money renting trucks, wasted time causing a scene, and wasted energy daydreaming, only to receive a giant, round zero. This $4 million mansion was now as useless to them as a giant, empty cave. Barbara glared at me with pure hatred. "You are vicious. I never thought you would calculate things this far." I shrugged. "I am just taking out the trash to prepare for my new life. If the people do not deserve to be here, their belongings should be cleared out too." While they were seething, the oppressive heat of the afternoon began fully penetrating the sealed house. The massive glass windows turned the mansion into a giant greenhouse, trapping the solar heat inside. Sweat began pouring down Barbara's face. The next phase of their nightmare was just beginning. The heat of a Southern California summer is no joke. The outdoor temperature was nearing 100 degrees, and inside this sealed glass box it was even worse. The air was stifling, stagnant, and suffocating. Lexi was suffering the most. The spoiled princess, who couldn't survive without air conditioning, was a mess. The heavy makeup on her face was melting into a muddy disaster. Her silk shirt was plastered to her back. She fanned herself frantically. "It is so hot. Why does it feel like an oven in here? Connor, turn on the AC." Connor, irritated by his sister's demands, angrily marched over to the smart home control panel on the wall. He jabbed his finger repeatedly at the touchscreen, trying to activate the central air, but was met with terrifying silence. There was no hum of vents opening, no blast of freezing air. The screen remained pitch black. What the hell? Is the power out or is this thing broken? Connor slammed his fist against the wall. Lexi, unable to take the heat, dashed into the first-floor powder room to splash water on her face. She twisted the sink handle all the way, but the faucet only let out a dry, rattling cough before dripping 3 drops of murky brown water. "There is no water!" Lexi screamed from the bathroom. "Mom, there is no water. I am so thirsty. I am going to die in here." Barbara, still sitting on the floor, her back completely soaked in sweat, panicked at her daughter's cries. She turned to me and shrieked, "Victoria, what kind of sick game is this? Why is there no power or water? Are you trying to kill us?" I stood leaning against the wall, casually fanning myself with a small folding fan I had pulled from my designer bag. My relaxed, elegant posture heavily contrasted with their miserable state. I looked at Barbara, speaking with total indifference. "What is so strange about it?" I moved out. Since the house is empty, I canceled the utilities to save money and prevent fire hazards. I called the DWP yesterday to terminate the electricity and water accounts. You are standing in an empty shell. No power, no water, no Wi-Fi. If you and your kids want to stay and enjoy the heat, be my guest. I won't stop you. Just be careful when it gets dark, it will be pitch black in here. I would hate for you to trip and break a leg." Hearing this, Connor fell into total despair. He slumped down onto the bottom step of the staircase, wiping sweat with his shirt. "How are we supposed to live here? It is a literal furnace and dark as a cave at night. The crappy apartment was better than this." Lexi stumbled out of the bathroom, her face streaked with mascara, her hair a greasy mess. "Mom, I can't take it. Let's go home. If I stay here another minute, I am going to pass out. My skin is ruined." I watched the 3 of them, thinking about how they crumbled at the slightest physical discomfort, yet had the audacity to try and steal a house and play the masters of the game. People who only know how to leech off others' hard work truly have zero resilience. Barbara looked around the massive house that had become a sweltering glass cage. She wanted to stay out of spite, but the heat was physically cooking her skin. She scrambled to her feet, trying to salvage her last shred of pride. Fine, you win today. I was not prepared, so I will let you off the hook. But do not think this is over. I will call the utility companies to turn everything back on. This is my son's house. I have the right to connect whatever I want. I smiled. Sure, if you have the property deed to open a new account. But if you try to illegally bypass the meter, prepare for massive fines and felony charges. Barbara let out a dramatic huff and barked at her kids. Let's go. It is suffocating in here. This evil woman's toxic energy is too heavy. I can't breathe. We will figure this out later. They dragged themselves toward the front door, looking like a defeated army. But I was not going to let them off that easily. I had one more psychological blow to deliver, ensuring they would never dare return to vandalize my property. Just as they stepped out the front door, I called out, "Hold on. Before you leave, take a look at that wall." I pointed to the white wall opposite the entryway. I had taped a crisp, white sheet of paper to it, with large, bold red font that immediately caught the eye. Connor squinted and read it aloud. Private property, no trespassing. This premises is monitored 24/7. Any vandalism, including scratching the paint or damaging floors, will result in immediate civil and criminal prosecution. Connor looked back at me, scoffing. Who are you trying to scare? You think this piece of trash paper scares me? I could spray paint this wall right now. What are you going to do about it? I walked over to the paper and pointed up at the ceiling, where a tiny black dome blinked with a subtle red LED light. Look closely, Connor. That is a battery-operated 4K security camera. It runs on a backup battery and a cellular connection, entirely independent of the house's power grid. It streams directly to my security company's cloud server and my phone. It is very high resolution, it can see your pores. I paused, watching the color drain from their faces, and continued in a commanding tone. I just spent $100,000 having the paint and floors professionally restored to prep the house for sale. If you chip a single tile, smudge the paint, or break a window, I will pull the footage and sue you for felony destruction of property. You will not only be paying me thousands of dollars, but you will be facing jail time. And Connor, with your existing criminal record, another felony means you will never find a job again. Understood? Hearing thousands of dollars in jail time, Connor went pale. He yanked his hand away from the wall, terrified to even brush against it. Lexi clung to her mother, staring at the camera like it was a loaded gun. Barbara was furious, but she was deeply terrified of losing money. She was the cheapest woman alive. She would not part with a single penny, let alone thousands of dollars. She shot me a venomous glare, grabbed her children's arms, and dragged them out the door. Do not engage with this psycho. Just you wait. Karma is real. You live this wickedly, you will pay for it eventually. I stood with my arms crossed, watching them trudge back out to the gates, feeling immensely relieved. I called after them, "Thank you for the concern. I believe in karma too. You reap what you sow. Drive safe. Do not get heat stroke." Out at the gate, the movers were sitting under the shade of a tree, exhausted and annoyed. Seeing the family return empty-handed, they asked in confusion, "Wait, you are not moving in? What about all the stuff in the trucks? Do we take it back to the apartment or somewhere else?" Barbara, already raging and now being peppered with questions, snapped at them. "Move into what? It is a literal oven in there. Take it all back to the old place." Hank, a burly, sun-baked mover, stepped right in front of Barbara, blocking her path. "Lady, you have got to be kidding me. You hired us this morning, dragged us out here, and now you want us to drive it all back? How are you paying for this? We have been sitting out here for 2 hours." He pulled out his clipboard. "Including the wait time, the drive out here, and the drive back, your total is $300. Pay up so we can get moving." Barbara, hearing the total, jumped like she had stepped on a landmine. "What? $300? Are you robbing me? The truck's barely moved. I am only paying you $100 for the drive from the apartment. Take it or leave it, or I am calling the cops." Hearing her threaten to call the police, the movers burst into mocking laughter. Hank tossed his clipboard onto the passenger seat and stepped uncomfortably close to Barbara, his massive shadow looming over her. "You think our trucks run on water, lady? Gas prices are insane and my crew is sweating bullets out here. We agreed on an hourly rate. $300 is me giving you a discount because you are old. Do not try to hustle us." Connor, seeing his mother being intimidated, tried to play the tough guy again. He rolled his shoulders and puffed out his chest. "Hey man, watch how you talk to my mom. We will figure out the money, just back off." Hank shot Connor a deadly glare. You want to step up, kid? You want to pay for her? Pull out your wallet. If you do not have the cash, shut your mouth and stand aside. Connor, intimidated by Hank's sheer size and the sight of the other movers grabbing heavy metal tire irons from the truck bed, instantly deflated. He backed away, muttering, I am just saying, relax. Barbara looked at her cowardly son, then at the angry movers, realizing she had picked a fight with the wrong people. Terrified, her trembling hands reached into her bra to pull out a stash of cash she had been hoarding for new furniture. She counted out $300 bills, her face twisted in absolute agony, like someone was slicing off her flesh. Here, $300. Take it and drive my stuff back. And do not break anything, or I will make you pay for it. Hank snatched the cash, expertly flipping through it, and smirked. That is more like it. Next time you can't afford a move, do not hire a crew and waste our time. With the cash in hand, the movers' attitudes flipped. They whistled, hopped into the trucks, and fired up the loud engines, blowing exhaust smoke directly into the faces of the stunned family. I watched the chaos from behind the gate, holding back a laugh. Barbara just received another brutal lesson in respecting working-class people. But the show was not over. The moving trucks drove off, leaving the family stranded. And another massive surprise was waiting for my wonderful brother-in-law. As the quietness settled back over the Bel Air street, the family prepared to leave in defeat. Barbara muttered curses about the movers, mourning the $300 she had just lost. Lexi's face was a disaster, her makeup completely melted, exposing a terrible acne breakout. Let's just go, Mom. I am dying in this heat. Hunter said he would come deal with Victoria tonight. Connor adjusted his shorts, walking exhausted toward his red Mazda 3, which was parked brazenly on the expensive paving stones of my driveway. Earlier, when I opened the gate, Connor had quickly driven his car inside, intending to use it to load up his brother's smaller valuables. He assumed this was his house now, so he could park wherever he pleased. Connor pulled out his keys and hit the unlock button. The headlights flashed and the horn chirped. He opened the driver's door, ready to crank the AC, but as he put it in reverse and hit the gas, the car violently jerked and refused to move. The engine revved uselessly. What the hell? He stuck his head out the window and looked down at his front wheel. What he saw made his jaw drop. Clamped tightly onto his front driver's side wheel was a heavy-duty, bright yellow parking boot. It was the commercial kind used by police and strict HOAs. Mom, my car got booted, Connor screamed. Barbara and Lexi, who were trudging toward the gate, whipped around. They ran back, staring at the bright yellow metal clamp gleaming in the sun. How did this happen? Who did this? Who dares lock up my son's car? Barbara shrieked, kicking the heavy iron boot, only to end up hurting her toe. Connor finally noticed a neon green violation sticker slapped aggressively onto his windshield, right in the driver's line of sight. He ripped it off and read the bold print. Violation. Unauthorized parking on private property. Vehicle immobilized by HOA security. Contact homeowner to pay fine and arrange removal. Tampering with this device is a crime. Connor crumpled the paper, his face turning purple with rage. He looked up at the second-floor balcony, where I was standing, arms crossed, looking down with serene indifference. Victoria, get down here right now. What kind of sick game are you playing? Take this off my car, Connor screamed, pointing a finger at me. I smiled gently and called down. Connor, you are being unreasonable. This is my private driveway. It is private property. You trespassed and parked here without permission. I called HOA security to boot it, according to neighborhood regulations. Just like at a luxury mall or a private condo. You have to respect the rules. Rules my ass. Take this off right now or I will smash this house to pieces, Connor threatened. Go ahead and smash it. The 4K cameras are rolling, I replied easily. As for the boot? Sorry, I am a bit busy. I have a reservation at the spa right now. The release key is locked in the safe. I have to go. Leave the car there. Maybe I will unlock it in a few days when I have free time. Just a heads up. Unauthorized overnight parking in Bel Air carries a $200 per night HOA fine. Start saving up. With that, I turned around, went inside, and closed the balcony doors, shutting out their hysterical screaming. I knew they didn't have the guts to smash my house for fear of the lawsuit. And they couldn't abandon the car because it was Connor's most prized possession, even though it was technically in Hunter's name, and Hunter was making the payments. I walked down the back stairs and slipped out the rear service gate, where an Uber was already waiting to take me to the spa. I drove away, leaving my ex-in-laws to fight a parking boot in the sweltering LA heat. A lesson in respecting property boundaries needed to be memorized. After I left, The atmosphere in the driveway became toxic. Barbara sat on the hot stone steps, using a magazine to fan herself furiously, whining nonstop about her cruel fate and her evil daughter-in-law. Lexi hid in the car to escape the sun, but since the car couldn't move, idling the AC drained the gas tank dangerously low. She eventually had to turn it off, roll down the windows, and suffer. Connor paced around the car like a wounded animal. He kicked the tires, cursed to the heavens, and tried to pry the boot off with his bare hands, which was entirely useless. The hardened steel clamped tightly onto his expensive alloy rims. "Damn it, I am getting this off," Connor hissed. He pulled out his phone and searched for a mobile locksmith. 20 minutes later, an older locksmith pulled up in a work van. He took one look at the heavy-duty commercial boot and frowned. "Hey man, take this thing off for me. The crazy homeowner locked me in," Connor pleaded. The locksmith pushed his glasses up his nose. "Is this your car? Where is the registration?" "It is my brother's car. He has the paperwork, but it is my family's car. Just cut it off. I will pay whatever you want." The locksmith shook his head and waved his hands. "No way, kid. Professional ethics. No proof of ownership. I don't touch it. If it is stolen or an illegal dispute, the LAPD will have my license. Plus, this is a commercial-grade lock. You need a specialized key or an angle grinder, and an angle grinder will destroy your rim. Have the homeowner or the cops sort it out." The locksmith got back in his van and sped off, wanting no part of this mess. Connor's last hope vanished. His anger reached a boiling point. He looked around the yard and spotted a heavy cinder block left behind by the landscaping crew. He grabbed it with both hands and marched toward the wheel. "I am smashing this thing off. Let's see you hold my car hostage," he roared. Barbara panicked. "Connor, stop. Do not hit the car, we can't afford to fix it. Those rims are expensive." But Connor had lost his mind. He raised the cinder block high and slammed it down with all his might onto the yellow boot. Crash! The deafening sound echoed off the houses. The cinder block shattered into pieces, sending concrete shrapnel flying. But the steel boot didn't even dent. It merely suffered a scratch in the paint. However, the force of Connor's wild swing drove the block straight into his own car's fender, caving in a massive dent and scratching the glossy red paint to the metal. Worse, the impact cracked a huge chunk off his expensive alloy rim. Connor dropped his arms, staring at the disaster he had just caused. All the blood drained from his face. The car he babied like a newborn was now a mangled wreck. Lexi stuck her head out the window and screamed, "Are you psycho? You smashed the car. Hunter is going to kill you." Connor collapsed onto the pavement, clutching his hair. He was completely defeated. His brute force and street thug mentality were utterly useless against the cold, hard reality of the law and my calculated traps. The car remained immobilized, serving a sentence in my driveway. Barbara looked at her son, then at the car, then up at the sky, which was turning a deep twilight purple. She finally realized they had walked blindly into a trap of their own making. Night fell. The warm, yellow streetlights of Bel Air clicked on, casting long shadows. The neighborhood felt deceptively peaceful. But inside the gates of Estate 86, tension was still boiling. After a tear-filled, highly exaggerated phone call from Barbara, Hunter finally arrived. An Uber dropped him off at the curb. He stumbled out, reeking of alcohol, his dress shirt unbuttoned, his face flushed red from booze and fury. He had been out drinking with his business partners, bragging about getting a $4 million mansion in the divorce, only to receive the catastrophic news from his mother. Seeing his mother and siblings sitting on the curb like homeless refugees having been forced out of the dark, mosquito-filled yard sent Hunter into a blind rage. "That psychotic bitch. She dares treat my family like this," Hunter roared. He didn't even bother asking if they were okay. He marched straight to the unlocked trunk of the Mazda and pulled out a shiny aluminum baseball bat. It was his weapon of choice for road rage intimidation. Resting the bat on his shoulder, Hunter stormed up to the front door. I had just returned from a relaxing evening at the spa. I had turned on every single light in the house, making the mansion glow like a fortress of light, contrasting sharply with the dark street where Hunter's family suffered. Hunter smashed the metal bat against the thick, reinforced glass of the front door. A terrifying crack echoed through the night, but the dual-pane shatterproof glass held firm. "Victoria, get your ass out here. You want to hide like a rat? Come out here and face me, or I will smash this whole house to the ground." Hunter slurred, violently drunk. I stepped out onto the second-floor balcony, holding my phone on a tripod. I was live streaming. Thanks to my successful e-commerce business, I had a large social media following, and right now, Thousands of eyes were glued to Hunter's meltdown. I pointed the camera down at him and spoke calmly, loudly enough for both Hunter and my audience to hear. Good evening, everyone. I want you to see the true face of Hunter, CEO of XYZ Corp. Look at how he treats his ex-wife and her property the day after our divorce is finalized. He is currently trespassing on my private property, armed with a deadly weapon, attempting to break into my home. Seeing the camera, Hunter lost his mind. He pointed the bat at me. Stop filming! Turn that off right now, or I will come up there and smash your phone to pieces. You think you can scare me? I am your husband. This is my house. I do what I want. Hunter, we are officially divorced. The judge signed the decree today. You are a trespasser committing a felony. Thousands of people are watching you right now. Do you want your distinguished CEO reputation destroyed in 5 minutes? Hunter froze. Even through his drunken haze, his obsession with his public image made him hesitate. But the humiliation of being outplayed drove him mad. He raised the bat to swing at the glass again. I don't care! Give me my money back! The $150,000 you tricked me into signing away. Right before the bat hit the glass, a deep, authoritative voice boomed from the front gate. Hunter, I suggest you put the weapon down immediately, unless you want to sleep in a holding cell at the LAPD tonight. Hunter spun around. Standing at the gate was Attorney Thomas, my legal representative, flanked by 2 massive, armed private security contractors dressed in black. Attorney Thomas adjusted his tie and walked onto the property with the calm authority of a man who held all the cards. I am Attorney Thomas, representing Miss Victoria. Everything you have done tonight is on camera and being broadcast live. If you shatter that glass, you are committing felony vandalism, not to mention assault with a deadly weapon and trespassing. Do you want me to call Captain Miller back here? Hunter lowered the bat, panting heavily, glaring at Thomas. Oh, you are the lawyer? Great. I am going to countersue you both for fraud and theft. Thomas smiled, the smile of a shark smelling blood. He opened his briefcase. You want to sue? Excellent. We have been waiting for you to sue. But before you do, you might want to look at this. This is why I am here tonight. Under the glow of the landscape lighting, the file Thomas held looked like a death warrant for Hunter. Hunter scoffed, trying to maintain his bravado. What is that? Do not try to scare me with fake paperwork. Thomas calmly handed him the first page. High-resolution photographs. Hunter, holding a barely legal girl in a revealing dress in the lobby of a luxury hotel. Another photo of them at the check-in desk. And the fatal blow, a zoomed-in shot of Hunter signing the credit card receipt for the room. Hunter went ghostly pale. He snatched the paper, his hands trembling. Where did you get this? Have you been stalking me? That is indisputable evidence of infidelity during the marriage. But that is not even the best part, Thomas said, his voice as cold as ice. The important part is on the next page. Please review these bank statements. Hunter flipped the page. Numbers danced before his terrified eyes. It was a detailed transaction history from his personal and corporate accounts. Several lines were highlighted in bright neon yellow. Date, transferred to Barbara, $25,000. Memo, allowance. Date, transferred to Connor, $60,000. Memo, debt help. Date, cash withdrawal, $65,000. Total, $150,000. Thomas announced clearly, Hunter, this $150,000 was transferred and withdrawn immediately before the divorce proceedings began. These were marital funds. Your secret transfer of assets to your mother and brother, and the cash used to pay off illegal gambling debts, without my client's consent, is a severe violation of family law. It constitutes fraudulent dissipation of marital assets. We have the evidence, and the lawsuit is already drafted. Barbara, listening from the curb, shrieked, My son earned that money. He can give it to his mother if he wants. You can't stop him. Thomas turned to her, his eyes sharp. Ma'am, under California community property law, income earned during the marriage is joint property. He has no legal right to secretly give away $150,000. It is a crime intended to hide assets from the divorce settlement. Thomas turned back to Hunter, delivering the final blow. You have 2 choices. Option 1. You reimburse my client for her half of the hidden assets, $75,000 plus interest and legal fees. Option 2. We file a civil suit for asset dissipation and turn this over to the DA for fraud. With this amount of money and the adultery evidence, how do you think the judge will rule? Are you ready to lose your company, your reputation, and possibly face criminal charges? Hunter stood dead still. The metal bat slipped from his fingers, clattering loudly against the stone pavers. He knew Thomas wasn't bluffing. Thomas was a heavyweight in the legal world. He destroyed men like Hunter for breakfast. Hunter stared at the bank statements, cold sweat drenching his back despite the heat. The money was gone. He had given it to his mom to buy jewelry, and Connor had gambled the rest away. Where was he supposed to get $75,000 in cash? You are pushing me into a corner, Hunter rasped, his voice broken. I called down from the balcony. No one is pushing you. I am just demanding what is legally mine. You treated me like garbage, counted every penny when it came to your wife, but threw away hundreds of thousands on mistresses and your leeches of a family. Now, you pay the price. Thomas added, you have 24 hours to decide. Now, get your family off my client's property. If you do not leave immediately, I am calling the police and handing over the video of you threatening my client with a bat. Every document, every number, was a knife, cutting through Hunter's ego. He looked at me, then at Thomas, then at his pathetic, ragged family. In that moment, he realized he had lost completely. His arrogance was entirely crushed by the weight of undeniable legal evidence. He looked at the ground and barked at Barbara and Connor. Let's go. Stop standing here making a fool out of yourselves. The family slinked away from the gates, leaving the booted Mazda behind on the driveway. Their shadows stretched long and pathetic under the streetlights. I ended the live stream and let out a sigh of relief. Round 1 was a total victory, but I knew their greed wouldn't let them walk away easily. Especially Lexi. The cunning sister-in-law hadn't made her move yet. After years in that family, I knew them too well. They were starving parasites. Even if you ripped them off and they bled, they would still try to bite you. Their silence as they left wasn't remorse. It was the calm before a desperate storm. I walked Thomas to his car, thanking him for the perfect timing. He advised me to lock everything down tight, as desperate people do desperate things. I nodded, went inside, and armed the advanced security system to its highest setting. While I sat in the living room, sipping a glass of Merlot and watching the 16 infrared camera feeds on my iPad, Hunter's family was huddled around a sticky table at a cheap 2-4-hour diner. I only learned the exact details of this meeting later from Lexi's police confession, but I could picture it perfectly. Hunter sat with his head on the table, reeking of booze, completely defeated by the threat of the lawsuit. Barbara was crying about losing the Bel Air mansion, blaming Hunter for being useless. But Connor and Lexi were not ready to give up. Connor kept complaining about his booted Mazda. Damn it, that car is my life. It is sitting there baking in the sun. And how am I supposed to get around tomorrow? Lexi, always the schemer, had a glint in her eye. Connor, you are such a coward. Victoria is just bluffing. She won't actually sue. What matters right now is your car. Where is the vehicle registration? Connor blinked, then slammed his fist on the table. Crap. It is in the glove box. I forgot to grab it. See? Lexi smirked. Hunter is too drunk to do anything. I will handle it. Tonight, I will sneak in and get the registration. Once we have the paperwork, we call a real locksmith, show them the papers, and they cut the boot off. Or we call the cops and report the car illegally held. They have to help us if we have the registration. Barbara looked worried. But her house is locked down like a fortress. How are you getting in? What if she catches you? Lexi waved her off. Mom, chill. I checked it out. The back wall connects to an empty lot. There is a tree right next to the wall. Victoria lives alone. She is probably dead asleep by now. That security system is probably just dummy cameras to scare us. I will hop the fence, use Hunter's spare key to open the car, grab the papers, and bounce. While I am at it, maybe I will grab whatever is left in the yard as emotional damage compensation. Connor nodded eagerly. Smart. You are small and fast. I will wait outside as the getaway driver. In their greed, they completely forgot that I was no longer the naive wife they once knew. They underestimated my preparation and overestimated their own petty intelligence. Lexi eagerly prepared her burglary kit, bolt cutters, a switchblade for protection, and a small flashlight. Later that night, the moon was hidden behind thick clouds, creating the perfect cover for a crime. I had turned off all the lights in the house, leaving only a few dim garden lamps on, making it look like I was fast asleep. I sat on the sofa, watching the glowing screen of my tablet. The clock struck midnight. The neighborhood was dead silent. On camera feed 4, covering the rear perimeter wall, a small shadow appeared. The shadow crept along the wall, looked around, and began climbing the branches of an oak tree hanging over the property line. I took a sip of my wine and smiled coldly. The rat was in the trap. Lexi thought the darkness was her ally, but she didn't know that modern military-grade infrared technology turned night into day for the person watching the screen. I saw her every move. She wore a tight black tracksuit, a baseball cap pulled low, and soft-soled shoes to mute her footsteps. She straddled the 8-foot wall, looked down into the quiet yard, and smirked. She slowly lowered herself, dropping onto the manicured grass. I had recently hired landscapers to tidy up the yard, but I had also instructed the security firm to install a dense grid of infrared motion sensors along the entire interior perimeter. Invisible laser tripwires crisscrossed the yard like a massive spider web. The second Lexi's foot hit the grass, she broke the beam. A deafening commercial-grade siren instantly erupted, tearing through the silent night. The sound was as loud as a fire alarm, echoing across the entire Bel Air Canyon. At the exact same moment, high-powered LED floodlights positioned at all 4 corners of the yard snapped on, turning the dark garden into a blindingly bright stadium. Lexi, blinded by the intense light, panicked entirely. The siren made her jump out of her skin, her heart hammering against her ribs. She scrambled wildly, trying to climb back up the wall, but her legs turned to jelly. She slipped and fell face-first onto the lawn. Within 2 minutes, the neighborhood's private armed response team, alerted by the automated system, arrived on golf carts. I used my phone to open the side gate for them. I walked out to the backyard, holding my phone, strolling as if I were taking a midnight walk. Before me, Lexi was curled into a ball on the ground, shielding her eyes from the floodlights. Scattered around her were her burglary tools, the bolt cutters, the switchblade, and the flashlight. 2 massive security guards had her pinned. "Stay on the ground. Keep your hands visible," one guard barked. Breaking and entering in the middle of the night? Lexi was trembling violently, stuttering a pathetic lie. "Please let me go. I was just looking for my lost cat. I swear I am not a thief." I walked closer, looking down at my ex-sister-in-law shivering like a wet dog. I spoke with heavy sarcasm. "Looking for a cat with bolt cutters and a switchblade, Lexi? Were you planning to do surgery on the cat, or were you trying to break into my house?" Lexi looked up, saw my face, and turned deathly pale. She was caught red-handed, with 0 way out. Connor, who was supposed to be the getaway driver outside the wall, heard the sirens and completely lost his nerve. His cowardice overriding everything, he started his borrowed car and sped off into the night, abandoning his sister to the wolves. 10 minutes later, the LAPD arrived. Captain Miller stepped out, saw the scene, saw the bolt cutters and the knife, and shook his head in disgust. "This family again?" Captain Miller sighed. "You caused a riot this afternoon, and now you are scaling walls at midnight? This is felony burglary, armed trespassing, and breaking and entering." He looked at his officers. "Cuff her and put her in the cruiser." Lexi burst into hysterical tears, turning to me and begging, "Victoria, please save me. I am so sorry. I will never do it again. Please tell them to let me go." I turned my back to her. "When you climbed that wall with a knife, did you care about our family bond? Now the law takes over. I have no power to stop them." The police slapped the cuffs on Lexi and threw her into the back of the cruiser. The sirens wailed again, but this time it was the sound of justice being served. I watched the police cars disappear down the road, feeling absolutely zero pity. This was the steep price Lexi had to pay for her arrogance and greed, and tonight was going to be a very long night for her family. Early the next morning, the atmosphere inside the LAPD precinct was heavy. Lexi sat huddled in an interrogation chair, her eyes swollen shut from crying all night. Her black clothes were covered in dirt. She looked entirely broken. Barbara and Hunter had arrived at dawn. Barbara was weeping loudly, while Hunter sat staring at the floor, his face gaunt and pale from a sleepless night of panic. Connor was nowhere to be found, too terrified of being implicated to show his face. I walked into the precinct with Attorney Thomas. The moment Barbara saw me, she treated me like a lifesaver. She lunged forward and fell to her knees right in front of me, grabbing the hem of my skirt. "Victoria, please, I am begging you. Have mercy on your sister. She is young and stupid, it was just a foolish mistake. Please drop the charges. If she gets a felony, her life is over. I beg you." I took a step back, gently peeling her hands off my clothes. Looking at the woman who had tormented and abused me for years now kneeling at my feet, I didn't feel victorious. I just felt a bitter sadness at how quickly people change when they have no power. Hunter looked up, his voice hoarse, completely stripped of his former arrogance. Victoria, I was wrong. My whole family was wrong. I will do whatever you want. Just please let Lexi go. She is a girl if she has a criminal record. How will she ever get married? How will she get a job? Consider this my last request to you. Attorney Thomas guided me to a chair, opened his briefcase, and spoke with crisp professionalism. Mrs. Barbara Hunter. Lexi's actions constitute armed trespassing and attempted burglary. The mandatory sentencing for this is severe. However, considering she did not successfully steal or damage the property, and my client's willingness to show some leniency, we are willing to sign a non-prosecution agreement and ask the DA to drop the felony charges. Barbara's eyes lit up with desperate hope. Really? Oh, thank you, Mr. Lawyer. Thank you, Victoria. Thomas raised a hand to silence her. However, for my client to drop the charges, your family must meet the following conditions for restitution and emotional distress. First, you will sign a strict, permanent restraining order, preventing any of you from coming within 500 yards of Miss Victoria's residence or workplace. Second, you will pay full restitution for the security call-out fees, legal fees, and emotional distress. Yes, we agree to everything, Hunter said frantically. How much is the restitution? Thomas slid a piece of paper across the table detailing the costs. The total is $10,000. This must be wire transferred by noon today, or we do not sign the release. Hearing $10,000, Barbara almost fainted. She wailed, "Oh my God, why is it so much? Are you trying to kill us? Where are we supposed to get that kind of money?" I looked Barbara dead in the eye, my voice unyielding. Barbara, do you think your daughter's freedom is worth less than $10,000? If you want to save the cash, let the justice system handle it. I am not forcing you. Hunter gritted his teeth and snapped at his mother. Mom, stop bargaining. Saving her is what matters. I will find the money. Hunter knew this was the price to silence me. If this went to trial, not only would Lexi go to prison, but his corporate reputation would be utterly destroyed. How could he run a company with a family of felons plastered all over the news? With the police as witnesses, Hunter signed the restraining order with trembling hands. He spent the next 2 hours making frantic phone calls, taking out payday loans, and even pawning the Rolex off his wrist just to gather the cash. When the notification pinged on my phone confirming the $10,000 wire transfer, Hunter collapsed into his chair, completely drained. Lexi was released. She ran out and hugged her mother, sobbing uncontrollably. The family quietly limped out of the precinct together. I watched them go, feeling light and unburdened. I planned to donate that $10,000 to a children's charity. I considered it buying good karma for my future. I wanted no part of their dirty money. After paying the fines and my restitution, Hunter's family was genuinely bankrupt. Their cash reserves were completely wiped out, and debt was piling up fast. They had already terminated the lease on their cheap apartment, leaving them essentially homeless in Los Angeles. Hunter decided the only option was to pack up the family and flee to a rundown trailer park in Bakersfield where a distant relative lived, hoping to lay low and dodge their creditors. That afternoon, they rented a heavily used, rusted-out Chevy Silverado pickup to save money. They piled every single piece of their junk into the truck bed. Cheap clothes, blankets, box fans, and the random boxes of trash Barbara had refused to throw away. The truck bed was stacked dangerously high, looking like a sinking ship on wheels. Hunter drove, Barbara sat in the middle, and Lexi took the passenger seat. Connor was crammed in the tiny extended cab back seat, buried under duffel bags. The atmosphere in the truck was a suffocating, depressing silence. No one spoke. There were only Barbara's heavy sighs and the loud, struggling roar of the old V8 engine. They had made it about 30 miles up the I-5 North Freeway. Suddenly, the flashing red and blue lights of a California Highway Patrol cruiser appeared in the rearview mirror. Hunter panicked and quickly pulled over to the shoulder. A young CHP officer approached the window, resting his hand on his duty belt. "Good afternoon. License and registration, please. I pulled you over because your load is unsecured and obstructing your rear view, which is a major safety hazard." Hunter fumbled nervously, handing over his license and the rental paperwork. The officer scanned the documents and walked to the front of the truck to check the tags. He returned, shaking his head. "Sir, the registration on this vehicle expired 6 months ago. Furthermore, this load is completely unsafe." Hunter broke out in a cold sweat. "Officer, please, we are just moving up to Bakersfield. We have had a really hard week. I borrowed this from a buddy, I didn't know the tags were dead. Please, cut us a break. Can I just pay the ticket right now? The officer's face was stony. We don't take cash on the side of the highway, sir. Driving an unregistered, unsafe vehicle carries a heavy fine, upwards of $500 and mandatory impoundment. Please step out of the vehicle. I am calling a tow truck. You will have to arrange alternative transport for your belongings. Hearing that the truck was being impounded, Hunter felt like he had been struck by lightning. If they lost the truck, they were stranded on the side of the freeway with a mountain of garbage. Barbara, hearing the officer, tried to deploy her ultimate weapon again. She threw open the door, practically falling onto the dirt shoulder, and clasped her hands together in prayer. Officer, please have mercy, we are so poor. My evil daughter-in-law stole everything from us, and now we are just trying to get home. Have pity on an old woman. But the law is the law, and highway patrolmen are immune to theatrical tantrums. The officer firmly wrote the citations. A flatbed tow truck arrived 20 minutes later to haul the Chevy away. The family of four was left standing on the dusty shoulder of the I-5 freeway. Around them was a massive pile of cheap, unboxed junk. To make matters worse, the California sky suddenly darkened, and a freak summer downpour began. Cold rain lashed against their faces and soaked their clothes, washing away whatever shreds of dignity they had left. Connor stared at the soaking wet cardboard boxes, looked at his weeping mother and his defeated brother, and dropped to his knees in the mud, crying like a child. Misfortune never comes singly, especially when you invite it. Their greed and blatant disregard for the law had dragged them to the very bottom. Illuminated by the passing headlights of semi-trucks, the family looked incredibly small, pathetic, and tragic. It was a miserable, yet entirely deserved ending for people who so only 3 months after that chaotic week, my life had returned to a beautiful, peaceful routine. The civil lawsuit regarding the $150,000 Hunter had illegally dissipated finally concluded. Thanks to the ironclad evidence provided by Attorney Thomas, the judge ruled entirely in my favor. Hunter was ordered to pay me back my $75,000 share, plus all legal fees. Because he was completely broke, Hunter was forced to liquidate his luxury condo in downtown LA just to pay the court judgment. Left with absolutely nothing, he moved into the dilapidated Bakersfield trailer full-time with his mother. Connor was actively being hunted by Vegas bookies. He had to disappear, living off the grid, drifting from town to town, too terrified to even call his mother. Lexi, burdened by her arrest record, found it impossible to get hired at any decent company. Her dreams of marrying a millionaire or becoming an influencer were permanently shattered. She was forced to take an exhausting, minimum-wage night shift at an Amazon fulfillment center, facing the grueling physical labor she used to openly mock. As for me, after receiving the settlement money, I donated a large portion to a local orphanage and a senior care facility. I truly believe that when you give to the world, you receive peace in return. I used the rest of the money to fulfill a lifelong dream, a month-long solo vacation across Europe. I walked the elegant streets of Paris, watched the Eiffel Tower sparkle at night. I rode a gondola through the serene canals of Venice, and I stood inside the Colosseum in Rome, feeling the immense weight of history. The trip broadened my horizons, healed my remaining wounds, and reminded me of my own worth. I returned to Los Angeles and poured my energy into renovating my Bel Air estate. I painted the walls a warm, inviting cream, replaced the furniture with an elegant, minimalist design, and planted dozens of rose bushes and shade trees in the garden. I turned the house into a true sanctuary. This evening, I am sitting on my back patio, sipping a hot cup of chamomile tea, watching the spectacular California sunset paint the sky in shades of orange and pink. A gentle evening breeze rustles the fabric of my silk dress. My heart feels incredibly light, entirely free from the burdens of the past. The chapter of my broken marriage and the battle for my home is officially closed. It was an expensive but invaluable lesson about karma, independence, and self-respect. I smile, silently thanking the storms I endured. Because of them, I found myself again, an independent, strong, and deeply happy woman. A woman's happiness and suffering are determined by her own choices and her willingness to fight, not by the charity of others. And I chose the most perfect, triumphant ending for myself.